Hi, everybody. Welcome to Two Moons and a Microphone. My name is Tanya Scott Thomas. I love fantasy, but I keep it real. Season 2 of Two Moons and a Microphone is sponsored by Housebar. Housebar is the bottle shop remixed for adventurous drinkers, foodies, and home entertainers. Housebar is here to help people gather well, live fully, and celebrate intentionally. Visit Housebar, Navy Yard, and Georgetown. Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be back for another episode of Two Moons and a Microphone. And I am so excited to welcome my friend and yours, David Mizejewski. He is the director of community promotions and
content
for Warp Graphics, producers of Elfquest, our favorite comic, the thing that brought us all here. And we are going to get down and dirty with all kinds of information. David is also our game master for the official Elfquest role-playing game, which I know very, very little about. So David is going to educate me about role-playing games, and we're going to get very deep into the maps, because the maps of the world of Two Moons of Abode just, gets my little geekiness excited, because I love maps. Whenever there is a book that has a map in it, I'm all about it. And I ordered the Kickstarter. I've backed the Kickstarter for the role-playing game just for the stuff. Like, I just wanted to read more stuff about the world and the characters and get the little figures and all the art that's in it and read about it. But David is here to tell me how I can enjoy this even more once the game comes out. So welcome, David.
Hello, Tanya. I'm thrilled to be back as always. I am very excited about everything you were just talking about, because I had the great privilege to do a lot of the work with Chaosium to sort of update the original Elfquest role-playing game that came out originally back in 1984. So this new edition, which kind of kickstarted at the end of last year, is the official 40th anniversary deluxe edition of the classic role-playing game. And basically what that means is that because of the stretch goals in the Kickstarter, we were able to sort of commit to adding some new content. So it's the core game. The rules are the same, with some of the updates to simplify it that came a little bit later with the second edition. But there's all sorts of new stuff to bring it a little bit more up to speed with the story of Elfquest, because of course that original role-playing game came out and the original quest had not even finished. So I think
so much has happened.
Like issue 18 or 19 or something. And so, like they didn't even have the full original quest to go by when they sort of put together the rules and the world building stuff and, the different kinds of elves and whatever. And you and I know, and probably everybody listening, the world of Elfquest has grown over those last 40 years. And there's new tribes and new magical abilities and new creatures and new scenarios and even new times, right? Like there was a huge 10,000 year time jump during the Kings of the Broken Wheel series in the 90s. So the new game, I am very happy to report, has all of that in it. And I couldn't be more excited because, again, I helped collect it and write it. And as you know, I'm a total uber Elfquest nerd, and I love the world building stuff. And what you said really resonates. I think a lot of people, a lot of Elfquest fans, love the classic role-playing game and probably backed this Kickstarter because they want more information. They love the world building. They want to see the map. They want to get the little character standees, like you were saying, even if they're not role-playing, into role-playing themselves. Now, we're hoping to change that, because the idea of getting to play our favorite elf characters or our fan creation, our self-elves, I want more people to do that. So you let me know, like, what are your questions about the game and role-playing in general?
Okay, so my first question, because I'm not too familiar with role-playing games in general or this game, but my sense is that it's sort of like this collaborative fan fiction type of thing with fighting. So
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad like super boiled down kind of definition. So I mean, like the name suggests, role-playing games are an opportunity for people to come together around sort of a specific property like Elfquest or sort of built world, and come up with characters, and in typically a dice based or sort of role based sort of game rules, you get to sort of play out collectively with your group of people, sort of an adventure, and that adventure can be anything, and yes, it's true in sort of the big popular role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. They do tend to be a little bit sort of battle oriented, but there are many different kinds of role-playing games that are more, relationship based, or the adventures don't involve, fighting and violence and that kind of thing. And so, but yeah, at its heart, it's an opportunity to, you have this game. There's sort of parameters and rules about like the sort of your character's abilities, what that character can do, their strengths, their weaknesses. You build in like their personality, and again, like if you're into character design, right? Like what are they wearing? What is their hairstyle? A lot of people, love to sort of draw out their characters and kind of really give them sort of a 360 kind of fleshed out, kind of background, which then helps inform when you're playing. So role-playing games typically, work that there is a game master, or in Dungeons and Dragons, it would be a dungeon master. But most role-playing games has somebody in this role of game master, and basically they are running the game, and they are essentially sort of feeding scenarios to the players. And so, and then the players have to respond to those things, and then they each get an opportunity to take an action, and they can do any number of different things. They roll the dice to see if that whatever thing that they were trying to do was successful, and that's based on like stats and numbers that are all part of the character creation, and charts and things like that the game master has. And at its most basic level, if you roll it and it's successful, you're able to do that thing. If you're not, the game master says you weren't, that didn't happen. So then it goes to the next person's turn, and then that person does something, and so on and so forth. And mixed in there, there's the people that you are encountering, or the creatures that you're encountering, or the scenarios that you're encountering, which are doing stuff to you as well. And so you, together with your team of players, get to sort of shape the pathway that this game goes. So in role playing, there's really no like winning per se. It's really more about the experience and getting to sort of live out the characters that you've created and do fun stuff. And each adventure or module or campaign, these are all terms for sort of the game that the game master is running. But that's kind of the gist of it. Now, that's all sort of ephemeral, right? Let me give you an example.
Yeah. How do you get started? Like,
okay,
how do you share this character development that each person has done?
Well, so there is, again, there's sort of like part of the game rules is like how to create a character, right? So you follow the different steps, and every role playing game is different. The Chaosium role playing system is based on something called the basic RPG system, which is like percentage based, and it's a little complicated for me to get into here right now. But and I'm also not like a math person and a numbers person, so. But
me either. I heard there was math, and I got a little scared.
Yeah, I mean, it can get a little bit complicated if you're not familiar with it. But that's why, and we can talk about this in a little bit, why we're sort of gearing up and bringing in a group of experienced game masters who know how to do this, to help Elfquest fans who maybe like you are not as familiar with role playing, and can kind of step in at a basic level, and kind of together we can kind of learn the game and then have fun with it. And so, and Vanessa, I just saw you pop up on screen. Vanessa is one of them. She's one of the game masters that are organizing right now on the Elfquest Fanholt Discord server. And so if anybody out there is interested in playing, helping, creating a character, learning the rules, maybe even being a game master, please head over to that Elfquest Fanhold Discord server. I've sent out the email link in the Howl newsletter if you're on our mailing list. I'm not sure if we have it handy that we can,
it's put up in the chat. Thank you so much, Yvette.
Brilliant.
And thank you, Vanessa.
There we go. So folks, a quick little sidebar. That Discord server started out as the Elfquest audio movie backer, exclusive Discord server, but we decided to open it up because keeping it exclusive didn't seem to make a lot of sense. We want people to sort of come in and have fun with Elfquest on all of these different social media platforms. So right now, the big focus on that Discord server is the RPG. But so if you're interested in that now, please join it. But if you just want to hang out on a different social media platform and nerd out about Elfquest, that's a place for you as well. There's just not a lot of that going on quite yet, but there will be. So anyway,
can you describe how do you use the Discord server? What is it for us folks maybe from the 1900s or or overloaded with lots of social media? So what makes Discord special, and how does that enable people to play together?
Yeah, so it's funny you should say that because as a fellow person from the 1900s, Discord actually reminds me of some of the very first social media, which were chat rooms. And so Discord is unlike, say, like a Facebook or a Bluesky, where or an Instagram, where it's sort of image focused and you do a post and then people comment on it. It's much more about threads of conversation. So you have different, they're called servers, which is sort of the topic. And then there are basically different channels, which are topics within that server. And so, for example, we have the Elfquest RPG, but you can get really granular with it. And so, yeah, shout out to AOL chat rooms. It's very similar to that. It's a little bit more complex, though, I think. And so, anyway, it's just a different way of having more real-time conversations. So people get on there and you can chat back and forth, with folks. You can share images and links and all of that kind of thing. But the idea is that you can go into the topics that you want to explore. So there's a fan art one, and there's again, I don't have it open in front of me. I've looked at it, spent so many hours looking at it, I can't even remember all the channels. But I do want to give a huge shout out to Maureen Krauth. She is an Elfquest fan. Folks might remember, probably about 10 years ago, she pulled off the most incredible pregnant Brill cosplay. She herself was pregnant, obviously, and she had, the whole outfit and the ears, and it was pretty mind-blowing. And so Maureen is a Discord, junkie expert. She spends a lot of time there. And so she very, very graciously stepped up and said, hey, if you need help, I know what I'm doing in Discord. I can help kind of launch this. And so she and I, mostly her, have really kind of rebirthed the Discord, and she's helping to coordinate all the game masters, and there's a lot of work that's gone into it. So big shout out to Maureen, who goes by Samson on the Discord.
I met her at Baltimore Comic-Con. Yeah. She was in her cosplay for Brill, and her baby, who was right. Little baby Corfey, and she had it was so cute.
Yeah,
she had the hair, swooped up and everything.
So anyway, she's got the Discord server going on. Discord is a sort of a chat room platform. So, but it's kind of similar. There are functionalities kind of similar to StreamYard, what we're doing right now. Or even like Zoom, where you can have video chats. And so it's a place where people can organize that doesn't require an external link or something like that. You just go onto the Discord server and go into that particular sort of live stream, and then you can join and you can share your screen. And so a lot of role playing enthusiasts use Discord as the sort of the meeting place for their players. And so typically to get back to sort of the RPG, the role-playing how-to, right? So you're going to go through the process. You're going to roll up your character. You're going to come up with their backstory and, you know, what tribe they're in and what abilities they have and whatever, right? So you have your character. You're ready to go. Or you can play like a pre-rolled character.
Oh.
For example, one of the known Elfquest characters. We have in the original game, there were character sheets for probably, you know, 15, 20 different characters. With the deluxe expanded edition, we have added a whole mess of new characters, some that just were not included in the original game, and many of which just didn't exist in Elfquest yet. So they weren't even characters to be included. So I, again, worked very closely with Wendy and Richard and with the Chaosium folks and pulled together all the info and stats and backgrounds for like all of these incredible characters. And there's going to be character sheets for them. So if you want to play Moonshade, if you want to play Goldruff, if you want to play Cutter, you can do that. And it's all rolled out, right? And so you can play one of those known characters. You can come up with your own character. You're going to get together with your group and your game master, and the game master is going to set the stage and say, you know, there are pre-written campaigns or games, right? And they all have sort of like a crisis or like a dilemma that the players have to sort of address and get over. So one of the campaigns from, or modules, I think they call them with Chaosium, from the original game was, excuse me, there is a Wolf Rider tribe. You're part of a Wolf Rider tribe, not the known tribe. Just again, sort of this is where the fan fiction or the fictional part comes in. This is your imagination, right? Like you can play it straight like the comics, or you can have fun with it, right? And so
Yes, you could be the bread lady.
You can be the bread lady, absolutely. Oh my gosh, we didn't make a character sheet for her, but now I feel like that might need to happen.
Well, Draco Dawn Stars can do her own character, and she can be the bread lady.
Yes. And that's
just have to say, I'm sorry. In the chat, everyone is remarking on your fabulous Captain Pike hair, which
thank you.
I just have to let you know.
You know, it
is doing the do right now.
You know what's funny is that full confession, this is like total hat head. I was working all day. My hair was a mess. I just did a quick zhuzh before we came on camera. I'm actually going to get a haircut tomorrow because it's getting a little bit lopsided and floppy. But yeah, you know, I guess maybe I will take that compliment because
no, it's giving. It's giving.
Has pretty badass hair.
100. Yes.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, it's doing it. Okay, so
yeah.
Yes, back to the game.
So yeah, there's a module where like the water at the tribe's, you know, Holt is getting fouled, and they can't drink it anymore, and they're getting sick. So there's a group of Wolf Riders that have to go out and figure out what is poisoning their stream, and so that's the game, right? And so the game master will say, where do you want to go? And there's a map, and we're going to get to the maps. That's the thing that I'm most excited to talk about tonight. But there's typically some kind of map in any role-playing game, so that, you know, the game master will show that to you, and you know kind of where you're going. And, you know, there's distances that have to be factored in. That's another math thing, but the game master deals with all of that. So the game master will say, you know, what's your character's name?
Oh, my character? It's going to be River Plum.
River Plum, that's right. Yeah. So, you know, he's going to say, River Plum, you know, you have to find out what is poisoning your stream. Which direction do you want to go? And, you know, you and presumably your adventuring group will say, well, we're going to follow the river upstream. And you're going to do that. And then the game master has all sorts of info that you are not privy to, right? So maybe you're going to encounter a long-toothed cat. Maybe you're going to, one of you is going to fall and, you know, hurt your ankle. And then, you know, maybe you're going to fall asleep and get wrapped by preservers, right? There's all of these different things that the game master can sort of have happen or will happen based on your choices. And so it's like almost like a choose your own adventure books. Do you remember those?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So like whatever choice you make, leads down this pathway. But if you made this choice, it could go this way, and the game experience could be completely different. And so ultimately, your goal in that is to find the source of what's poisoning the well and presumably stop it. And there's going to be challenges there, and you're going to have to make decisions. And maybe you are sort of a Scott and Krim personality character, right? And you're going to swing your sword first, talk later. Maybe you are more of a diplomat like Talit, and you're more into having conversations and figuring out and sort of bridging gaps so that you can sort of have harmony, right? And everything in between. So you can really have fun with it. And your character does not need to match your own living personality, right? You could be a nasty old go back. You could be the most curmudgeonly troll. You could be the most airheaded sun villager, right? And then you play the character the way that you've written that character, right? So again, how you would play a character, I don't know, like Redlance would be very different than Kavi, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
So you can have fun with it. You can make those decisions and do the things and use, all the things about that character. And when everybody gets together and you have a group of people all doing that, it gets really fun.
So did you play the game originally back in the 80s?
Yeah, so I, like most or many other fans, I was a little young when it first came out. And so I was like 9 or 10 years old. And so full disclosure, got a little overwhelmed with the rules because they can be, as they say, a little crunchy. That is true of all role-playing games, though. I play a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons as well. And I have the same challenges of remembering, what do I roll for this and what's my advantage and blah, 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 But the thing is, the more you play it, the easier it becomes. And there's all sorts of little cheat sheets, and your game master will know everything. So, there are going to be on the Discord, we're organizing games for like total newbies, people who've never role played before. So, we're all here together to sort of walk you through. So, I devoured the original game. I loved, again, sort of the world building that they did, or really that Wendy and Richard did in Elfquest, that they sort of codified in a way in the role-playing game. And so again, we've taken that and run with it and taken it like a million miles further in this new edition. So I can't wait for people to really start playing it. And you can now I'm trying to think of some of the additional things. Like, we've added in tusk hogs, which is that ornery, nasty, tusked pig-like creature
that
from that's a bristle boar.
Oh,
that's a bristle boar. They were in the original game. Right?
I'm speaking to a naturalist right now, so I'm getting
well
all the fauna.
And clearly, doing the wildlife section was probably my favorite part. Combing through all of Elfquest, pulling in some of the coolest creatures. So, obviously there's the comic. So the tusk hog appeared in Kings of the Broken Wheel when they first went to the new land, and they're out hunting, and that nasty creature springs out and Cutter chops its head off. And
that thing is huge.
Yeah, it's actually not that big when you see it in scale.
I guess they're small, so
exactly, yeah. And then it reappeared. There was another appearance of that creature in Dreamtime. If you recall, it was Pike's dream. Pike is hunting one of these tusk hogs, and then it goes south, and it goes, and Cutter has to save him, and he's caught up a tree or whatever. So anyway, I, with using my naturalist knowledge, sort of wrote a description of what that animal is, a little bit about what its behavior is, its ecology, where it lives, and then the Chaosium team took that and codified it into stats, numbers that you would, again, roll against. So in other words, like if you were playing the game, another scenario, River Plum, is walking down the forest path, scenting the air, looking, following the scent of the spoiled water and not paying attention, and rounds the corner, and suddenly a tusk hog is barreling down the trail right at her. What do you do?
Well, I get my bow and arrow, or I climb up a tree.
Okay, you got to tell me which one.
I'm going to climb up a tree because I like to. It seems like it would be coming too fast. Okay,
so what you're going to do is you're going to roll. And we're it's a percentage thing. So it's going to be based on what your, I think dexterity would be the ability. And if you roll higher than what your number is, then you were successful at doing that. If you roll lower than what your number is, then you trip and you get clumsy. And then the game master has to decide, well, this tusk hog is 10 feet from you. Is that enough time for it to get and actually, hit? And if the answer is yes, then you have to roll damage. And every character has basically hit points. And that means that's like maybe you have 20 points to start with. And every time you are injured or attacked, like those points go down and down. And eventually when they get to 0, you're dead. So there are stakes in these games. You can die. So yeah, it's
yes, definitely roll a high number.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you are successful. You make it up into the tree, and then the tusk hog is down. He's not leaving the tree. What do you do next?
Oh, now I need to figure something out. Let's see. What do I do next?
Well, what would a wolf rider do in that scenario? Think that way.
I mean,
tree by this nasty curmudgeonly creature with sharp fangs, and you have to get back on your quest.
I would have probably tried to either, I don't know, jump down on it with a spear, like try to get it that way. Or I guess if I had a bow and arrow, but I'm not sure if that would pierce its hide. So
right.
Hopefully a spear, or hopefully I had some friends around also.
Right. So now
you're members of the tribe.
Right. So now you're role playing. You're the elf trapped in the tree. You're thinking, what are my options? What's my best bet? So you have to go through that and you make a call and you decide. And then again, there'll be sort of a rolling process. Howl for help is definitely a thing that a wolf rider
might do. Send for help. You don't want to be alone up there.
Yeah. Now, maybe you are a particularly talented sender, right? So maybe you would know this about your character. So maybe what you would do is send for help. And the game master will, determine, like, are you within range of anybody else, right? And so then the game goes in that direction. And, the overarching thread is to sort of still stay on that quest to figure out, who spoiled the stream. But you can have all sorts of different adventures. You could even do the same campaign 5 different times and have it go completely differently each time.
This is so interesting. I'm very excited to get my game. And, I might introduce this to our family game night. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's really fun. Role playing is really fun, especially when you get, sort of the right group of people that you're playing with, and you can kind of play off of each other. And you have a good game master that knows the rules really well. And this is all my opinion, right? Your mileage may vary, but game masters that know the rules really well, but that are, they are willing to have a little bit of fun with things, and they're not, so by the book that it becomes kind of a chore, right? And that's another thing that I'll say too, especially in the beginning, if you're new to role playing, I think, yes, the rules can be a little bit intimidating, and this goes for new game masters too. Look, you're in charge. If you decide that a batch of the rules just isn't going to work for your game, don't use them.
There is no spoon.
Exactly, right. And so that is, to go back to your question, Tanya, like when I was a kid and I got the game, we did play, my friends and I, but we really sort of boiled it down to very super simple rolling, like yes, no kind of things. And we didn't bother with a lot of the math and that kind of thing. So, but I will say again that the original game came out, and back then, sort of crunchy rules, that's the term that I've learned in the RPG world, that are a little bit technical, a little bit math oriented. Those were sort of in vogue then. And so that's what this game was like.
That's fascinating.
And, there have been some fair criticisms that it's not necessarily the best fit for Elfquest, which is a little bit less of a like a battle, like you roll, I kill, hit points. It's much more of like a story and relational, right? Characters do things that aren't always fighting, right? And so they did simplify the rules when there was a supplement that came out called the Elfquest Companion a few years later. And those simplified rules are now in the main game book. So when you get the Elf book, which is the main rule book, you will see all the old original rules, because again, this is a reissue of that classic game. But in that same section is and here's the shortcut. You can skip this, you don't have to do that. And then if you want to take it further, you can do that. And I know that some of the game masters over on Discord are already doing some of that. They're putting together their own sort of shortcuts and things like that, that when they're running their game, it'll make it easier for them. It'll make it more, easier for their players, etc. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. And most RPG sessions, in my experience, typically go for a few hours because people get really into it. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of play everything out. It's also hard to coordinate and get everybody available on the same date. And so once you have everybody there, I mean, some of my D&D sessions that I have played have gone for, 3-4 hours a session. So that's totally up to the players and the game master. You could do a weekly session of 1 hour, or maybe it's a monthly session where you do longer. So, but it's, again, there's so much flexibility. Role-playing games are so much about your creativity, how you want it to go. Do you want it to be silly? Do you want it to be serious? Do you want to be really militant about sticking to canon? Do you want to throw in a Smurf? Throw in a Smurf. You really can go in that crazy of a direction if you wanted to.
That is so cool. And so games are already started and are being played out right now.
I don't think anybody has actually played a game. And actually, this is a good time to give everybody the latest update on kind of the status
right,
of the game.
They've sent out PDFs for the Kickstarter backers so they can download their own rule books and the character descriptions.
And those are sort of it's sort of a beta test. So those are not the final versions. Those are like the first draft. And so what the folks at Chaosium do when they do these Kickstarters is they like to, get all the material put together, and then they kind of send it out for folks to play, test play it, to read it. And, in this case, we ask people to sort of be, as beta testers, like, find any mistakes. Like, is there anything that doesn't make sense? So, another little sort of behind the scenes is that the original game, was done in the 80s. So like pre-digital. And so, it's been a long time, 40 years. Right. And so like,
it looked like Ditto, like it was printed out on like a Ditto machine. I've seen screenshots and
it was professionally printed, but it was like, back then they did everything physically, right? So there was like a physical page with like the art clipped out and whatever, like those artboards that then went to the printer and was reproduced, right? And so those are lost. They might not exist anymore. So what the folks at Chaosium had to do, Rick Meintz, who's the VP, that's who sort of spearheaded this whole thing and who I worked directly with for the last 6 months on pulling all this info together and writing a lot of the new material. He had to use, sort of AI software designed to sort of that can take an image. So he had scans of the pages, and it can go through and it can read the words on the, sort of the image file and translate it into editable text. Wow. And so that allowed him to, rather than sit there and hand type the entirety of it, this the software can do that for you. But it's a machine, right? And so I think a lot of people caught several instances of Cutter being gutter because it mistook the C in the in the poor quality scan or whatever for a G. And of course, with any fantasy property, right, there's all sorts of crazy names, right? Like it's not going to know Winnowill or Raic, it's so that kind of thing. And so fans are awesome, and so many people read through and sent in, those kinds of, catches, misspellings, typos, things where, just things were a little bit off. And so, so where things are is, Rick is working to incorporate all of those. I actually sent a whole list of things too.
This is where I think this is a good idea or where it's actually helpful, because sometimes things come out and when people catch these little like small mistakes and they make this big thing about it, it drives me crazy. It's like
it drives me crazy.
That's what you wanted to like talk about out of all the beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
like the new book 2 that's out, and like
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later too. But
Yeah.
yes, so
Totally, totally. So, it's a fun way of sort of, crowdsourcing that and getting, people to sort of have a preview of what the new info is going to be. Again, these are just sort of the test PDFs. So when Rick is done with that, it will go and the thing will be printed up and it will be boxed. So again, it's going to be in a 2-inch box. The original box was only 1 inch. And
I
in that
cannot
box,
wait.
yes, are going to be all of the original game books. So there's the Elf book, which is like all the main rules, the World book, which is really something a little bit more for the game master. It's the flora and the fauna and some of the different sort of cultures and things like that. But it's a lot of the world building, and there's going to be then the supplement books. There were 3 supplements that came out that had different modules in them, basically different games. So there was the Elf War, that's about 2 groups of elves getting into a war. There's one called Sea Elves, which is the first incarnation of Wendy's idea for a sea-going tribe. The Chaosium folks ran with that and created this first Sea Elf tribe, which later sort of was canonized into the Elfquest story with the Wave Dancers. And then the other one was Sea Elves, Elf War, and then the Elfquest Companion that has the module that we were just sort of gently playing, the one about the poisoned stream. And so all of those books are going to be in there. Then there is going to be a sheet of character standees. Now, we have not revealed who's going to be part of that yet, but let me just say, it's pretty freaking cool. They're going to be printed on a big sheet of cardboard, and you can punch them out, and then they have their own little stand, right?
Yes.
So you can use these standees if you want, and a lot of people do. They use standees or minis. This is where minifigs come from. You can actually put them on the map so you can kind of see where you are, if you're playing in person and you have it sort of all laid out. And so, but we all know that Elfquest fans are going to love these and gobble them up and display them and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And it will not just be elf characters. I'll just say that. So there's going to be the standees in there. There will be some dice because, again, there's a lot of rolling of dice. By the way, one of the other things that Discord can do is it can automatically roll dice for you with like a certain command. So you don't have like,
yes.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different platforms out there that will do that for you. So again, if you're not into doing the math, there are ways that you can just click a button and it does it all for you. And so
definitely be needing that.
But yeah, so there's going to be all of that stuff in the book, the standees, but the coolest part of all are the maps.
The maps, yes.
So let's talk about the maps.
Yes. So as you mentioned, the World of Two Moons has expanded quite a lot from when it was first, created back in 1978. And we have a picture of the first map from the original game. This is from 1984.
This is from the 1984 edition of the game. And this map will be included in a folded version inside the game box, just like the original game. So you can open it up and you can put it on the table. TTRPG stands for tabletop role-playing game versus like just sort of a video game experience, like an online version. And so, hopefully some folks will be able to do this in person. You can still use it virtually the same way that we're doing right here. But at any rate, this was the original map. And so this was the world as we knew it, as of, sort of the second half of book 4, right?
Yes.
And that's as far as the game went into. So and so it's just one little snapshot of one little part of the World of Two Moons. And for many years, that's all we got. That's all we had. And it was only because that this role-playing game was done that we ever even had a map at all. I will say Wendy and Richard they're not gamers. And so like you, Tanya, all of this is a little sort of outside their familiar zone. They also are not, I said this somewhere. I think I said it in Discord. I've said this over the years too, that I've learned that Wendy and Richard are not we always say, like, these are not Tolkien's elves, right? So their method of storytelling is very dissimilar to someone like Tolkien, who was like, he was a historian and a linguist, and he like wrote everything down, and he wrote languages that never were ever used, and he had backstories, and everything was like kind of carved in stone. And the way that I have come to understand how Wendy and Richard tell stories is that they are not rock shapers, they're plant shapers. They let the story grow organically. It goes in the direction it needs to go in. If there isn't something that's helping the story grow in that direction, it's not important to them. And
Yeah.
so I don't think they ever would have probably come up with any kind of official map at that stage of the game anyway. But so because the role-playing game came out, we fans, again, got to have this, I think, really awesome part of that world building experience that we love so much with any kind of sci-fi or fantasy property, right? Whether it's Star Wars or Dragonlance or Tolkien, right? They all have a map, right? And it's part of the experience. We love that, right? We love to sort of imagine ourselves in these different places, and it helps kind of understand the story, right? It's like, oh, okay, I see. They had to go that far, and oh, this is over there, and and so the RPG, the original version of the RPG and the map that we were just looking at, kind of, that was the first time that we ever got anything like that with Elfquest.
Yes. I also love the family trees that are in the Blood of 10 Chiefs, those novelization books. Those
Oh yeah.
those also just like, I don't know, they just get me so excited. I just love it. I'm okay.
Totally, yeah. And another thing that I think Wendy and Richard will be fine with me sharing, they have zero interest in genealogies.
No.
They're like, I don't know. Who was their grandparent? I don't know.
Like somebody.
We fans obsess about that stuff. Like it does not make any sense to them why we care. But I've tried to explain it to them. I don't think they're ever going to get it, but that's okay.
Yeah, I love that they've created these things that have a life of their own, like sort of outside of Wendy and Richard, that just carries on throughout the world, and all this stuff, like this just great stuff that we get to play with and hold and collect. And
well, I mean, what I always say is, fans are going to fan, like there's things that we get great joy out of with these fictional worlds. And some of that, for some people, it is role playing and it is diving into the maps and the lore. For me, again, the world building, the natural history of the world of Two Moons is something that I love. And Wendy and Richard, like they put it in there, right? It's part because they're good storytellers, right? But it's not anything that I think that they would ever be interested in sort of doing a field guide to the world of Two Moons. I'm interested in doing that. And for other people, it's genealogies, right? And for other people, it's, languages, right? And so, that's the fun of it. Like, you can, as a role player, it gives us opportunities to really play in the sandbox in a kind of a way that has structure to it. So it's not just in your head, right? And that's one of the most exciting things about it. But yeah, I do credit the Chaosium folks for giving us this in the Elfquest fandom that I think is really beloved. That original map is something that every time it pops up on social media, people just love it. They go crazy for it, and rightfully so. It's really cool. It's got a very cool, distinct style to it. And so that's what we had until say 95. And so I think we've got a picture of the 1995 map, which Richard created. And so this first appeared as an insert into the Elfquest comics in the mid 90s. And so what this map did was it showed us a much bigger view of the world of Two Moons. And at that point in time in the publishing history and the story history of Elfquest, the planet that in prehistoric times was just the world of Two Moons. The inhabitants have begun calling it Abode. So this is sort of reflective of sort of the Future Quest era, and now Stargazer's Hunt era, right? But and this also was amazing, very different than the Chaosium map, much bigger, right? So much less detail in it, but this was really cool too. I mean, I spent many hours looking at this, and I think Richard did a fantastic job of like, coming up with names. Like, and a lot of these names and these places actually never appeared in any of the Elfquest stories, which is one of
Yes,
the
I
most
noticed
amazing
that.
things, because it's fodder for our imaginations, right? And it's also fodder for future Elfquest storytellers, right? I mean, who knows? In another 50 years, like maybe there'll be some people telling Elfquest stories or doing something with it, right? And these maps and these names and these places are going to be sort of the roadmap for that. And so and again, so what this map is really more reflective of is the future quest era. And so again, this was a great addition. It really, kind of expanded our thinking about the world, and we got to see sort of the different continents and things like that. But that was 30 years ago,
Yes,
and there
I love it
has
too,
not been.
Tamia. Yeah, it is beautiful. I just want to say thank you for everyone in the chat. You guys are just so enthusiastic, and I love that you are loving everything that we're seeing. So on to the next map, which
So
was
this map. So between that map that we just saw, which was 95, and the new map that has just come out, 30-year time span, right? No updates. But this is kind of a neat thing that I don't know how many Elfquest fans know about. But several years back, the French Elfquest publisher, Snorklo, they did a Kickstarter to produce French translation, series of graphic novels of Elfquest. They're really awesome, by the way.
Yes, I have this one. I have
Yeah,
the
and
Kings of the
so
Broken Wheel.
yep, and
Even
so
though I was a
part
terrible French student, but I
oh
had to
my
have
gosh.
it anyway.
I was in honors French through high school, and asked me how much French I can actually remember now. But yeah, I full disclosure, I have the French, and I've got the Russian, and I've got some of the old school Swedish translated editions. I'm not, reading them in different languages.
Yeah,
I'm
the
looking at them
Russian
here.
ones are stunning. The
Yeah,
covers, the color,
they
they
did a great job. Yeah.
are
Palma
incredible.
Press is the official licensed partner that did those. There are also bootleg versions. So yeah, but at any rate, this map was one of the Kickstarter rewards. So somebody at Snorglow took that 1995 map and obviously gave it a completely different feel, a completely different style than the one that Richard made, which was kind of its era. It was kind of slick and sort of like desktop software, graphic design programming. This one's much more, to me, this one feels much more piratey to me, and maybe a little bit too piratey for Elfquest. And I only share that because that was something that going into the creation of the new map, seeing this map, and for me having that reaction, like it's a little, again, it feels a little piratey to me. And it gave me a note to sort of help the cartographer. Chaosium actually has a cartographer because maps are so important to role-playing games. Really awesome guy named Matt Ryan, who is the cartographer that created the new Elfquest map. So I was able to say to him, like, this is really cool, but I think we want to take it in a little bit of a different design direction that feels a little bit more like Elfquest. So I guess drum roll if we want to
Yes.
share the new map.
So this is what you
wait,
helped
yeah.
to design. Yes.
This is how it started, you guys. So Richard got me
Started.
a blank version of that sort of continent structure and said, have at it. And so I, with great joy, spent many hours between the Kickstarter, wrapping, I think in November. And I want to say around late February, maybe even early March, researching. So I dove into all of the Elfquest comics. I read through all of the Blood of Ten Chiefs anthologies. I read through the novelization of, Journey to Sorrow's End. And I looked through reference books, older reference books like the Elfquest Gatherums and the Wolf Rider's Guide to the World of Two Moons. And I started making feverish notes. And so this was my first pass at, but basically my task was take this map, keep everything that we already know is there, and add all of the stuff that happened in Elfquest between 1995 and now. So
all by
this
yourself?
is what's that?
You did that all by yourself?
All by myself. Well, being, an obsessive Elfquest nerd was very helpful, because a lot of it I just knew right off the top of my head. But I wanted to do a good job, because this is important. I think it's important. It's obviously important for the game, but more, I think it's important to honor what Wendy and Richard have given us by creating Elfquest and giving us this fantastic world that we all play in our imagination, that has helped us in real life in so many different ways. And I wanted to do it justice. I wanted to sort of bring my lore knowledge of Elfquest and my knowledge of playing role-playing games to bear here, so that we could come up with something that, well, first and foremost, was sort of accurate to the world and to what has happened in the comics, right? We could have come up with all sorts of fictional maps, right? And maybe there'll be some of those in some of the supplements or maybe future things that come out, but that maybe aren't canon. But I wanted this map to be as close to canon as a sort of a supplemental licensed product can be, right? So I really wanted to make sure I got it right. And that, everything that all the different places that we've learned about that could be fodder for gameplay, made it onto the map here. I wanted it to be not contradict the 1984 map that we just saw, because I think that's important to have that internal consistency. And so that's really kind of how I approach this. And so this is what I sketched and scribbled down, and I scanned it, and I sent that over to Matt Ryan at Chaosium, the cartographer, and he took that, and the end result is the new map. This.
Ta-da!
So you can see the big difference between a professional cartographer / artist and me with my hand scribbling. Now, I don't know if it's possible to do any zooming on this, because it's obviously it's a little bit hard to read here. And so if we can't, that's fine. But there we go. That helps. I think this really is incentive for everybody to go out, and if you haven't already pledged for, back in the Kickstarter back last fall, you can still get the game. If you go to Backer Kit, Chaosium has made it available for pre-order. So basically it's essentially like a late pledge opportunity. So you can go in and you can pre-order the whole game, and there's extras. You can get extra copies of things. They are going to be making this available not just as the folded map in the game box, but there's also going to be a poster version of it that you
can
purchase.
I ordered.
Yeah. So
totally ordered that extra.
Totally. So
it's gorgeous. I love the new moon as the north, south, east, west.
Totally, right? Yeah.
That is so amazing. I just noticed that now, and I've seen this already. So
yeah, it's that is one of those little touches that makes this Elfquest. And so remember what I was saying a few minutes ago? Like, I wanted this, like that, the French map to me felt kind of piratey, right? Just in sort of stylistically. And so what the direction that I gave to Matt Ryan, the cartographer, just from a design point of view, he wasn't very familiar with Elfquest. So I remember saying, like, what is Elfquest? Like, what's the vibe of Elfquest? Elfquest is about nature, sort of. It's very earthy. And so, but yes, it's a fantasy world as well. So like the map needs to have that sort of fantasy vibe without it falling into kind of the Dungeons and Dragons trope or the Tolkien trope or the Dragonlance trope. I know we have some Dragonlance lovers, myself included, but right, Elfquest is not those things. So, let's make it a little bit softer, right? Let's make it a little bit more organic. Elfquest is very organic, sort of that whole kind of plant shaping metaphor there. And the places are nature places. They're forests, they're deserts, they're oceans, they're mountains, right? They're plains. And so let's make the map feel like a place where you can almost smell the forest, or like Cutter says, feel the breath of the trees, and again, sort of give it that organic feel that just feels a little bit different than most standard maps that you would see for a typical fantasy setting role-playing game. And I think he did a really fantastic job. Like, I want to go live there. The
it's
colors,
gorgeous.
yeah.
And it is just like you said. I think having someone that knows so much about Elfquest and the canon, because the environment in the story of Elfquest is like another character almost. It comes up, the seasons changing, and each tribe has this different environment where they live, and it just informs their entire lifestyle and their culture. So to have the map reflect that it's just chef's kiss. And you were the best steward for this project.
Oh, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. It was like so cool that I got to work on this. And again, as I always say, I'm blessed that Wendy and Richard have trusted me to help them with this kind of stuff. And Chaosium has been so great to work with. They are super just like chill. They're like, there's no like stress. There's like, yep, they get the job done, but there's never any drama. I forgot, I want to go back to sort of the update on things. So started to say that the PDF version went out, sort of the beta test. Folks have gotten their, those edits and stuff. Rick is currently making those happen. But the big update, which went out to all the backers via a Kickstarter update back in May, was that the original estimation of the game being, shipping out was around May. We've obviously passed that. This little tariff debacle happened in America, and that really had a huge ripple effect in the global economy. RPGs have been affected. So basically, Chaosium had to put a pause, and while they kind of regrouped and figured out what that was going to look like for them, and they are committed to not passing on, any tariff costs, whatever those might be, to the customer. So that meant kind of going back to the drawing board with printers in China. And so Rick has told me, everything's cool. It's going to probably be a couple more months before things deliver. So I'm hoping by, end of summer, things will start to ship out. And that's less than a year from when the Kickstarter started. So it's well within, it's still ahead of the curve for most Kickstarters. But I know that they and Wendy and Richard and myself, we appreciate everybody's patience. But the fact that we have the sort of rough draft version, it's really much more than a rough draft. It's 99% there. In PDF
I like what
form,
you said. It's beta testing. It's
like we can still play it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we won't have the standees in hand yet. We won't have the cool dice. We won't have the physical map in our hands. But that's why we've got all this. But so anyway, I wanted to just share that. But I hope everybody's excited about it, and I hope we are inspiring all of you watching and listening to hop on that Discord, to read the rules, to start rolling up a character, or, just come to it wherever stage you're at. And, where the Elfquest fandom is really a tribe. And I, not in the sort of the trite way that it oftentimes get used. We are kind of a family in a way, the good, the bad, and the ugly sometimes, right? But we're here to help each other. And I am so here to help anybody kind of understand the game and create your characters and play. I don't know that I will ever be a game master running games. Again, I don't know if that's my skill, but I definitely plan on playing. Almost certainly I will be rolling up Thornbreak, my self-elf character. But, I'm digging Drayon. I would love to play him. I'm a huge fan of Free Touch, or even sort of deep cut characters from the anthologies like Stormlight. I would love to play her because she was just badass.
That's a cool name. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So anyway, I hope this excited people about the RPG.
Yes, thank you so much for telling us about it, for walking me through like a very rudimentary game. And all of this information. And thank you so much for sharing all the maps and for putting all the time and care into creating it for this updated tabletop role-playing game. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. That book 2 is out from Dark Horse in the hardcover, fully updated colors that look absolutely gorgeous. So that's available from Dark Horse. And you were saying in the newsletter that
it's sold out.
It's sold out.
These are good problems to have.
Yeah, second printing.
Cow. Yeah. So, but book 1 also went into a second printing the day that it released, and we were blown away. I was actually in a Barnes and Noble buying my physical copy of book 1 when I got the email from our editors at Dark Horse, and I immediately called Richard, and he told Wendy, and she screamed. And so, but the print runs were set months and months ago. So even though book 1 sold out, the print run for book 2 was already set. And so within a week and a half, it sold out. Now your stores might still have copies. So I would say run out and get them, because it's 3 to 4 months for a reprint, for that second printing. It's already been triggered. It's being put together, but again, printed in China and then has to ship over on a boat. And so books 3 and 4, Dark Horse was able to up the initial print run on. So hopefully we won't sell out. But like, this is, again, a good problem to have. People are buying Elfquest again.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I mean, when in this world where, you feel like books are kind of under threat, that people aren't reading or they're not buying physical books, this is just like the best news. And I was so happy when I read it in the Howl newsletter. I was like, this is so great. This is exactly what we've been talking about, of like getting it out to new readers and old readers and older fans, and getting new fans. I was at the Trek Long Island convention a couple of weeks ago with the Sci-Fi Sisters, and there was a booth right behind us of a comic book store. And I was talking to the guy about it, and he was like, yeah, I kind of knew about it, but I never read it. He started reading it right then and there at the convention on his tablet. So I was like, and he was like, there's so much going on. Like,
totally.
Is the whole story like this, with just like action, action, action? And I was like, well, it ebbs and flows. It gets you really invested, and it's so cool.
I'm seeing a ton of that on social media too. On all the different platforms, Blue Sky, Threads, X, where people are discovering Elfquest. And a lot of people were aware of it, but didn't never really read it, and then they finally picked it up. But there's a couple people who are just flat out new. They're like, yeah, somebody got this for me, and I read it, and oh my God, and that is so amazing. I always forward those to Wendy and Richard, because they're not on social media other than Facebook. And so it's really cool to see. And of course, all of us diehard old school, old Growler fans are gobbling these up as well. And so, but yeah, no, book 2 is out, sold out. But again, there might still be some copies at your local bookstore. I think you can still get it on places like Amazon. Stands is sold out. And so book 3 is out.
Stands is sold out. That's great.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's because we're offering the autographed print. So they, and we've been driving people there. Yes. Isn't it gorgeous? It looks so good.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Very excited.
But yeah, book 3 is out on August 19th. And then book 4 is out on November 18th. So get your pre-orders in now. Do not risk, it's selling out before you get it. And quite honestly, the more people pre-order it, the more successful the book will be. That helps with all the algorithms and it rising in the ranks in the book publishing world and all of that kind of stuff. So, it's a little thing that we fans can do to help lift Elfquest up, is just go ahead and do that pre-order. Doesn't matter what platform you do it on. Get it from your local comic shop, your local bookstore, wherever. You can do Amazon if that's your speed. Do it from Stands, as long as you do it. Final Quest Complete Edition.
Yes.
Coming out in February. The cover I am so in love with.
with that
we'll
cutter
have
outfit that
come
we
back.
love so much.
Yeah, we'll have to come back and talk about that because I know
Yes.
we're probably out of time here.
Yes, we try to keep it to about an hour, but this has been so much fun, and it's just so great that all of this new Elfquest stuff is coming out, new books, the role-playing game, and we are all here for it, and I can't wait to talk about more stuff. So
Definitely. So let's make a commitment, Tanya. You and I are going to be part of an adventure group, and some other game master we're going to join some module, some gameplay, and you and I are going to play together. So we can be Thornbreak and River Plum and, go on the wild adventures on the World of Two Moons together.
yes, it's a date. It's you have a promise.
All right, excellent.
I'm committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for coming, David. Thank you to everyone in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't shout out more comments, but they were coming fast and loose, and there's just so much to digest. But I love all of you guys. Sister Tamia, Dracodon Stars, Vanessa, everybody, Joel, thank you for getting the book. Thanks for everyone for being a part of this amazing community. And if you're new here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our fun. And if you're catching us on a rewatch, please leave a comment and say hello, because I would love to hear from you. And if you would like to get your brand in front of this eclectic, loyal community, consider being a sponsor. Our fans are passionate about Elfquest, obviously, role-playing games, Steam, fantasy, sci-fi, and so much more. And they'd love to connect with brands that share their values. So if you're interested, whether you're a small business or an individual, just click the link in the description box or go to sci-fi sisters.com/sponsors to learn about how we can work together. So we will see you next time. Two Moons and a Microphone will be back on July 9th, and we're going to do another character deep dive. But if you would like to suggest one, please leave a comment or, hit me up on any of the socials. Those are also in the description box. Thank you so much, David. Thanks again to everybody, and Shade and Sweetwater.
Shade and Sweetwater.